It was the kind of night that makes even grown men hesitate. The wind moved through the trees like a warning. The road was dark, uneven, and nearly invisible. And somewhere in that darkness, a 16-year-old girl tightened her grip on the reins and made a decision that could cost her everything. Her name was Sybil Ludington. She was not a soldier. She was not famous, and history almost forgot her. But on April 26, 1777, the future of an entire region rested on the courage of a teenager riding alone through the night. Sybil lived in a farmhouse in Dutchess County, New York. Her father, Colonel Henry Ludington, commanded the local militia, farmers, blacksmiths, shopkeepers, ordinary men who could become soldiers at a moment's notice. The war had already begun. Cities had burned, armies had clashed, but in rural New York, life still moved quietly. Crops planted, animals fed, candles lit at dusk, until a rider came pounding toward their home. It was late. The household had settled in. The fire was low. Then came the knock, urgent, breathless. British troops had landed in Connecticut. They were marching inland. Danbury was burning, supplies destroyed, homes threatened, and there was reason to believe the soldiers would continue north. The militia had to gather immediately. Colonel Ludington could not leave his post. He had to organize, prepare, plan defense. Someone had to ride out and alert the men scattered across miles of countryside. The roads were dangerous. Loyalist sympathizers roamed the area. Armed bandits used the chaos of war to their advantage, and British patrols were not far away. No trained courier was available. And so, in that flickering firelight, a teenage girl stepped forward. She knew the land. She knew the families. She knew the men her father commanded. She also knew the risk. If captured, she would not be treated as a child delivering a message. She would be treated as an enemy messenger in wartime. Still, she mounted her horse. The distance ahead of her stretched nearly 40 miles, through Carmel, Mahopac, Kent, Stormville, a looping route designed to reach as many militia homes as possible. The night was cold. The sky offered little moonlight. Tree branches clawed at the path. Every sound felt amplified. The snap of a twig, the rush of wind, the distant bark of a dog. She rode hard. At each house, she dismounted, pounded on doors, called out the warning. "The British are burning Danbury. Gather at Ludington's." Candles flared to life inside dark windows. Men stumbled from sleep. Wives clutched shawls around their shoulders. Children peeked from behind doorframes, watching this young rider soaked in sweat and urgency. She did not linger. Back on the horse, down another road, across muddy paths, over narrow bridges. At one point, according to later family accounts, she used a stick to strike the sides of houses to wake those inside when knocking wasn't enough. The sound echoed into the woods like gunfire. Some stretches of road were nearly impassable. Rain earlier that week had softened the earth. Hooves slipped, the horse labored, but she pressed on. Imagine the weight of that responsibility. No applause, no crowd, no guarantee anyone would even answer the door. Just the knowledge that if she failed, men would not gather, and if men did not gather, towns would burn. Somewhere in that darkness, fear must have crept in. A distant movement in the trees, the possibility of armed men ahead, the reality that she was utterly alone. But courage is not the absence of fear. It is movement despite it. By dawn, she returned home, exhausted, mud-streaked, her horse trembling from the miles. And something remarkable had happened. The militia was assembling. Farmers left their fields, blacksmiths left their forges, shopkeepers closed their doors. They came with muskets and determination, answering a call delivered by someone they never expected. Colonel Ludington's forces would not reach Danbury in time to prevent the destruction already done. The town had suffered heavy damage, supplies were lost, buildings burned. But the gathered militia confronted British troops as they moved back toward the coast. Skirmishes followed, pressure mounted. The invading force did not advance deeper into New York as feared. One night's ride did not end the war, but it prevented further devastation. It strengthened local resistance. It proved something powerful, that commitment to a cause was not limited by age or title. Sybil returned to ordinary life after that night. There were no grand ceremonies waiting, no immediate national recognition. The war continued for years. Hard winters came, battles were won and lost. History turned its pages forward. She later married, raised children, and lived into the 19th century. For decades, her rides survived mostly in family accounts and local memory. Some historians debate details of the route and specific distances. Documentation from that era can be scarce, but what remains consistent across records is this: a teenage girl rode through the night to rally a militia in April 1777, and men answered. Her story challenges the way we often picture turning points. We imagine leaders in grand halls, generals on battlefields, speeches that echo through time. But sometimes history shifts because a young person refuses to stay still. Picture that farmhouse again. The knock at the door, the decision in the firelight, the moment between safety and action. She could have remained inside. Someone older might step forward, someone stronger, someone more experienced. Instead, she chose movement. And movement creates momentum. There's something deeply human in that image, a teenager carrying news of danger from house to house, trusting that neighbors would respond, believing that ordinary people could rise when called. That belief is powerful. The men she alerted were not professional soldiers. They were fathers, sons, husbands. Their willingness to gather depended entirely on a message delivered in time. That is the fragile thread history often hangs by: timing. Too late, and events spiral beyond control. In time, and resistance forms. As dawn broke after her ride, light spread across fields that might have faced fire. Smoke from distant Connecticut still hung in the air, but in Dutchess County, men were ready. Ready because someone knocked. Years later, her ride would be compared to that of Paul Revere. The distances were different, the circumstances unique, but the heart of the act was the same: warning, urgency, risk. Yet for much of early national storytelling, her name rarely appeared. Perhaps because she was young, perhaps because she was female, perhaps because history narrows its lens. But when we widen that lens, we see her clearly, not as a legend carved in marble, but as a human being on a tired horse choosing bravery over comfort. There's something universally compelling about youth stepping into responsibility. She did not wait to be asked twice. She did not wait for certainty. She rode. And that ride connected dozens of households into one coordinated defense. It reminds us that large movements are often sustained by small, determined acts repeated over miles and hours. A knock, a warning, a spark of urgency passed from door to door. When people speak of independence, they often focus on declarations and treaties, but before documents come decisions. Private ones, quiet ones. A girl in the dark deciding that she would not let her community remain unaware. That night, fear traveled the roads with her. So did resolve. And by sunrise, resolve had multiplied. If you close your eyes, you can almost hear it. The rhythm of hooves on packed earth, the breath of a horse in cold air, the pounding of a young heart that understood the stakes. Not fame, not recognition, just responsibility. History remembers wars through battles, but it survives because of messengers, because of those who carry word across distance, because of those who move when others hesitate. Sybil Ludington's ride stands as a reminder that courage does not check your age before it arrives. It simply asks, will you act? And on one April night in 1777, a 16-year-old answered. If stories like this move you, stories of quiet courage that shaped turning points, stay with me. There are many more hidden moments where ordinary people stepped forward and changed the course of events.